Thank you for staying with us. This conversation is a continuation of those we've had earlier in the week, and it has to do with the declaration of security emergency by Mr. President, the chief commander-in-chief himself, Bola Ahmed Tinubu, looking at the travails of, the abductees in the hands of these criminals running around. Series of abduction. In the last 12 days or thereabouts, we've had at least four reported cases of abductions. Two of them have to do with, schools, actually, where cumulatively more than 300 school pupils and students were abducted, and we learned 24 of them have been returned from Kebbi State. The abducted ones in Eruku, Kwara State have been returned. And now remaining the Papiri school children that were abducted, and we are waiting, for their return. Apart from that, teenagers from Borno State were abducted. We are yet to see their return. In Kwara State again, we learned, like 13 persons were abducted. 2 of them pregnant women, the rest of them children. And yesterday, the president released a statement, and that is our point of focus this morning, where he declared an emergency on insecurity in Nigeria. And part of what Mr. President said is what you have scrolling on your screen. And it's a statement from the president himself, which he personally signed. Declaration of nationwide security emergency and recruitment of additional personnel. I'm trying to get that for you. If actually we can have that right on the screen. Right, there you go. Declaration of nationwide security emergency and recruitment of additional army and police personnel. Fellow Nigerians, this is coming from Mr. President. Today, in the view of the emerging security situation, I've decided to declare a nationwide security emergency and other additional recruitment into the armed forces. By this declaration, the police and the army are authorized to recruit more personnel. The police will recruit additional 20,000 officers, bringing the total to 50,000. Although I had previously approved the nationwide upgrade of police training facilities, and the police authorities are, by these arrangements, or statement rather, authorized to use various National Youth Service Corps as training depots. The officers being withdrawn from VIP guard duties should undergo crash training to debrief them and deliver more efficient police services. The DSS they also have my authority to immediately deploy all the forest guards already trained to flush out the terrorists and bandits lurking in our forest. There will be no more hiding places for agencies of evil. And he said, as Mr. President, my fellow Nigerians, this is a national emergency, and we're responding by deploying more boots on the ground, especially in security challenge areas. The times require all hands on deck. As Nigerians, we should all get involved in securing our nation. Let me take this moment to commend our security agencies for working together to secure the release of those that were kidnapped. And to the leadership and rank and file of the armed forces, I commend your courage and your sacrifice. And in addition, our administration will support state governance to set up security who have, I take that again, state governments which have set up security outfits to safeguard their people from the terrorists bent on disrupting our nation. I call on the National Assembly to begin review of our assemblies to allow states that require police to establish them. State police, I think was talking about state police here. States should rethink establishing boarding schools in remote areas without adequate security, and mosques and churches should constantly seek police and other security protection. Administration created the Livestock Ministry to address the persistent clashes between herders and farmers. I call on other associations to take advantage of it and open grazing and surrender illegal weapons. Ranching is now the path forward for sustainable livestock farming, and national harmony. The federal government, in collaboration with the state, will work with you to solve the problem once and for all. And those who want to test our resolve should never mistake our restraint for weakness. This administration has the courage and determination to keep the country safe and ensure our citizens live in peace. And of course, the president sympathized the families of those who have lost their loved ones in Kan, Yobe, Kwara, Zamfara, Borno, Kebbi, and he praised, paid tribute rather to the brave soldiers who have made the ultimate sacrifice, including Brigadier General Musa Uba. And he talked about coexistence, peaceful coexistence, and he's urging Nigerians to remain calm and vigilant, report suspicious activities, cooperate with security agencies when these fight together, and together we shall win. Signed by the President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, GSFR, Aso Rock Villa, November 26th. That was yesterday. And, some will say, maybe finally Mr. President has woken up to his reality. And there are some that are still skeptical, that are saying, let's see what will happen. Is this just playing to the gallery, or does Mr. President mean all of this? We have been joined by public and security analyst and the DG at the Heritage Center, Dr. Katch Onanuju. He has been with us in the early conversations we've had, and it's only right, now that this development has happened, to ask his opinion on what he feels about this particular step being taken by Mr. President. Dr. Katch, good morning. Thank you for joining us. Doctor, if you can hear me, good morning, sir.
Good morning, my dear. I can hear you very well.
All right.
I hope you can hear me too.
Yes, we can. Dr. Katch, what do you make of this statement? Everything, the sympathizing, the steps to be taken, working with state government, ordering additional recruitment of police personnel and the DSS and the military and all of these people. And the president saying nobody should test the result of this nation. This nation is not weak. What do you make of all the components in this particular state? In a statement talking about national emergency and security put out by Mr. President himself.
Well, this goes to show you that we are correct in our blaming the president that he had gone to sleep on duty. These are things that had been planned long before now. These are the things that he should have done well before now. But because he was prevaricating, he was being dissuaded by the sponsors and the patrons of these terrorists. One very important thing is, if you check in his reading, he referred to them as terrorists. But when they are captured, he doesn't treat them as terrorists. They start thinking about treating them with what they call non-kinetic measures, which is wrong. These are terrorists. But because of who the sponsors are and who the patrons are, the president has not been very forthcoming in administering the country very well. But now that the president suddenly has been yoked into action by Mr. Donald Trump, now you're hearing these things that the president should have said long before now. We agreed on the issue of state police, but because of pressures from the sponsors and patrons of terrorism, the president stayed action. Now that we've had pressure from the United States, he is simply doing this again. As you saw, the governors of the Southwest states had their meeting and told the president he has to go further. And you can hear the president's language. States who are willing states. So willing states can go on do state police. Now this is where this issue is. It's the same game of do not engage. For a long time, the president has wanted to engage, but because the sponsors and patrons of these terrorists ask him not to allow Nigerians to engage and protect protect themselves. That's why the terrorists got emboldened, and the terrorists were able to penetrate several sectors and territories of our country, and then suddenly they are now causing so much harm that as we now intend to react, we now found out that because of the president's prevarication, these terrorists have spread to all parts of our country. If at the time he came, we had started doing these things that he talked about yesterday, I'm sure we will have been able to stop the terrorists from spreading everywhere. And I don't also forget, if you use the issue of the Kebbi State kidnapping of those school children, you will understand that the president is up against the sponsors and the terrorists. The sponsors and patrons of these terrorists are very much in power. They are governors in a lot of states. Some are ministers in his government. Remember when Goodluck Jonathan said that he has these sponsors and patrons of these terrorists in his administration. They got deeper into Buhari's administration, and they became very embedded in Goodluck in Tinubu's administration. We have to understand this is a new strategy of politicians using violence to sustain relevance. We either have to get the president to look them in the face and say, look, my dear brothers, if I made you minister and you are a governor and you think the only way you can maintain control over the circumference called your state or over the territory that you represent as a minister is by sponsoring terrorism so that you will be able to hold control of those lands, on the time of election, your terrorists will help you rig elections so you can maintain relevance. The time is over. That is what the president needs to do. And I'm happy he is now reading this riot act, which we begged him to do, but he was busy telling people that he is simply going to continue from where Buhari has stopped. That is not anything to say. That's a very, very dangerous rhetoric. And that is why he is now in trouble. As I said earlier, Tinubu did not start this jihad. The jihad was started and enabled by the administration of President Buhari. And at that time, I said on several television channels that Buhari's administration was complicit in the ethnic cleansings going around the country because he was using them as a strategy to grab land of indigenous people because the National Assembly has refused to make laws that will give him land, which he will now use to resettle these Fulani refugees coming in from other countries. I'm sure you remember the words of Governor Bola Ahmed that them will work with Buhari to make sure that Fulanis from all parts of West Africa are welcomed when they come to Nigeria. But you see, the problem with that particular strategy is if you're bringing them from all over the place to come to Nigeria, you will need to give them land. And because there's nobody willing to give land, me and you, we are Africans, we are Nigerians, and historically known to be emotionally attached to land. And that's why you saw, even though President Tinubu kept quiet, other states that were listening in the Southwest formed the Amoteku. Today, his president, Amoteku had been impaired and undermined, but of course now, the governors have told him, and Amoteku has to come back to power. So you can upgrade the Amoteku from bringing what it is, state-owned communal vigilantes, into state-recognized state police force. That's what it's going to be. Because after all, states like Kano also do have state police. Hisba is state police.
Dr. Katch,
yes.
We've heard what the president said, and we know that it is still in the pipeline. It's not something that is, in the works yet. The establishment of state policing. Several people, I'm talking about public commentators, CSOs, even governors themselves, regional governors, have in their regional forums, have spoken consistently in recent times, especially this year, about state policing. But now we've seen how the failure of not taking decisive action immediately can be a very burdensome decision at the end of the day. Just like now, it was said in that statement by the president that this police, withdrawn police officers from the VIPs are going to have a crash program, especially as they are going to be deployed to security-challenged areas. Now let's talk about this crash program. You're a security expert. How is it going to fare in the long run? We need every help we can get at this time. So the option or any other option may not be on the table. But in the long run, this crash program, we were not told, maybe the president sees no reason to elaborate in the statement. But tell us, do you think that they have it in the works that these people will be better trained, better equipped in the long run after this immediate need for them?
Well, we have two lines to this your question.
Okay.
One, using the available federal police. The federal police has failed. The federal military has failed because they have been infiltrated. You can understand that. Because of the infusion of a lot of these terrorists into the federal security agencies, nobody trusts them. Even if you send them together to go work with children from other parts of this country, those children from other parts of this country who are willing to serve Nigeria come under severe risk, because we know that a lot of those who have been indoctrinated to protect the interests of the Fulani militiamen could shoot and harm through sabotaging their own internal battalion members. So because of the corrupting of the federal security agencies by the Buhari administration, that is why it is very, very important that the states and local people are allowed to organize by our tweaking of our laws, security agencies that can protect the local interest. You are taking a federal police. You cannot take a federal policeman who is a Fulani man and you want him to go and defend communities in Shaki, in Oyo State. It's not going to happen. And then later he's faced with Fulani militiamen who are there in Shaki, heading towards the Oyo Forest Reserve. That will not happen. The idea of state police is to allow indigenous people who knows their terrain much better than somebody who hails from somewhere that is 200 or 600 kilometers away to come and touch persons. No, that is not going to work. The idea of these current announcements is to allow indigenous communities to elect their own sons who will now be empowered with a tweaking of the law to allow their local governments and their state governments to provide for them uniforms and weapons with which they will use to defend their areas locally. This is what yesterday's announcement is about. When we first mooted the idea that since we can no more trust the infiltrated national security agencies, as they are thought to have been damaged by the Buhari administration, it was now decided that let local people be able to organize themselves. And to organize themselves, let such organizations be done under the supervision of their governors. That was the reason why the idea of state police was thought about. You will now have a police formed by the local people, funded by the state government, selected from the indigenous communities, and in this case, in my community, we selected 15 persons per autonomous community.
Dr. Katch, let me help you.
And this is what I think is the proper platform, yes.
Let me help you make better sense of my question. I'll read now in part from the statement from the president as it's captured here on Punch newspaper. It says here, although I had previously approved the nationwide upgrade of police training facilities, the police authorities are, by this statement, authorized to use various National Youth Service Corps camps as training depots. It says, the officers being withdrawn from VIP guard duties should undergo crash training. So it's not the recruits, it's the withdrawn VIP guard duty officers now that should undergo crash training to debrief them and deliver more efficient police services when deployed to security challenged areas of the country. That was my question. I was now asking you, this crash program, is it going to be effective at the end of the day, or we're going to be back to square one, or what's off?
The answer to your question is no. The withdrawn federal policemen will not work because the employment of the federal policemen was skewed under the Buhari administration to favor people from the north. And some of the people infused into the national security network and organizations were mostly drawn in Mr. Buhari's views, drawn on a criteria based on nepotism. So you're not likely to have a proper spread of officers that can be pushed into the places that you need to secure. That's why I did not start answering questions in regard to the people that are to be brought back from VIP duty and now to be used for the augmenting of the needed security organizations. For your information, the earlier we embrace the state police, the better. The idea of trying to withdraw VIP guards is just rhetoric. Just like everything Nigerian, VIPs will not give up their guards. And because the administration is very weak, nobody will lose their guards. When they lose their guards, they will make contacts again and it will be restored to them as an important man. So I don't really take such rhetorics
Dr. Katch,
as anything to be taken seriously. Yes.
Coming point here, because of the exigency of time, I like to take as many components of this later, one after the other. The president addressed in paragraph 3 of the page 2 of his statement by saying our administration created the livestock ministry to address the persistent clashes between herders and farmers. I call on all herder associations to take advantage of it and open grazing and surrender illegal weapons. End open grazing and surrender illegal weapons. Ranching is now the path forward for sustainable livestock farming and national harmony. The federal government, in collaboration with the state, will work with you to solve this problem once and for all. So the president is saying by inference, no more open grazing. Ranching is the way forward. If you're having illegal arms, surrender it. That's why we have the Ministry of Livestock and all of those things. Do you think the president, has thought it well to say, I know what these problems are, and by this directive is handling it? And don't you think there'll be backlash? Because there are some who understand that in our laws, we have gazetted grazing routes. It's there in our laws. But the president is saying, no more to open grazing. Everybody go and ranch your cows. How will that play out?
You are wrong. There are no gazetted open grazing routes in the Constitution of Nigeria. You are capital wrong.
Really?
Those were suggestions by the government of Northern Nigeria. Under the Nigerian system, whenever the suppositions from a state, at the time we had 4 states, 4 regions, if the laws of one state in Nigeria's 36 states clashes with the constitution of the country, the constitution of the country takes precedence. That is our law. So if you have gazetted, as you want to believe it, grazing routes of the northern Nigeria, it does not apply to Nigeria. Please don't ever use that word again.
I'm not the one wrong. It's
suggestions.
Maybe there are, the way it works, but there are grazing routes. That's my point.
Listen, if there are grazing routes to deal with cattle that were coming from Mali, cattle that were coming from Mauritania, cattle that were, all these things are rhetorics spoken by people in government to deceive the public. Our problem today has nothing to do with grazing. Our problem has nothing to do with farmers, herders, crazy. That's something to do with grazing. Our problem is the criminal ethnic cleansing, supposedly for gaining land to resettle Fulani refugees from the other countries coming into Nigeria. That is why 64 communities have been occupied in Plateau State. Now, understand what's going on. So don't be buying this fraudulent rhetorics from sponsors of terrorism in government who just try to deceive you and start making stories about grazing routes. Even the grazing you're talking about. When the minister mentioned it in Yola, he was later on the following day to say, no, he didn't say that grazing is stopped, that they will take time to gradually phase it. These people are in government and they don't care what President Tinubu says. They are audacious. So Tinubu has to put his leg down to be able to win against his sponsors and patrons of this herdsmen militia.
On that note, Dr.
What we have, yes.
On that note, I want to say from that, the part of the statement that my colleague read about where the president asked that these herders should surrender their illegal weapons. First off, we can infer from that statement that the president is aware that some of them have illegal weapons. We could also infer that that is some form of pardon for them, more like pampering them. Should he not have said they should surrender themselves and their illegal weapons?
Under Nigerian law, nobody, apart from the security services, is allowed to keep automatic weapons. If you're owning weapons, there has to be licensed in line with the law. These are the protocols that were arranged for the Fulani conquest of other people's lands. Buhari purposely asked all Nigerians to go submit their weapons. And because the people who owned private weapons had licenses and their names were documented, everybody took their weapons to the authorities. Because if your name is written down in line with the gazetted law and you're asked to bring in the weapon, you don't have to say no. Your names are on a list and people were simply waiting for when each names on the list complies with this government directive to bring in their weapon. But then in return, Buhari allowed Fulani militias coming in from war-ravaged areas like Central Mali, like Central African Republic, Burkina Faso, Mauritania, to bring in weapons, even weapons that came from Libya. This was done intentionally, so that those people coming in with weapons will be able to intimidate the country.
All right.
And they did. You know what it is. So when they did intimidate the country, and we are now seeing the effect, we now beg President Tinubu, please look at these laws, look at these maneuvers by President Buhari, rescind them. Why is it now, because of the intervention of President Trump, that we are now seeing President Tinubu act in reaction to those laws? Katch, and this is what the problem is.
Yeah, we have less than 5 minutes, actually. The law I was referring to earlier was the Grazing Reserve Law of 1965 that created many routes, majorly in the north. So these things are there, but that's not the point. You know, the president...
Grazing Reserve Law of what? Is it Grazing Reserve Law of Nigeria? Is it Grazing Reserve Law of Nigeria?
All right, hold on, sir. You know, because we don't have a lot of time, let's talk about the National Assembly. The president talked in that political statement. He said, I'm urging the president, the National Assembly, to, you know, work on laws, and I'm trying to put that here. I call on the National Assembly to begin reviewing our laws to allow states that require state police to establish them. And there are some that believe the National Assembly have a hitherto not really responding, but we have maybe one or two of them that have been speaking truth to power. I'll allow you to watch this video from, you know, Eyinaya Abaribe, where he spoke passionately about the state of the Nigerian nation security. Take a look. Yep.
South. The writer, George Orwell, made a very profound statement, which I will quote. He says that in times of universal deceit, telling the truth becomes a revolutionary act. We are being told every day to be patriotic. We are being told here that we shouldn't say anything against. We are being told that, oh, you shouldn't talk about the past. You should focus on the present. Yet, on this floor, rather than focus on what we're supposed to talk about, we go back to say, oh, during 2015, oh, the Chibok girls happened, and oh, we are now rescuing people. People were not rescued at that time. During Chibok, 17 local governments in Katsina were not having palace with bandits. People in Kebbi were not leaving all the rural areas and coming to only the urban areas to stay. People in Niger were not being kidnapped. So why do we need to? At any time we need to talk about the present issues of today. We go back to start to look for excuse for our failures of today. I only want to say, let us do the right thing. We're not blaming this.
Dr. Katch, you just heard Eyinaya Abaribe speaking in this way, and many are saying maybe these voices are, you know, just one or two, like Dixon, like Eyinaya. And by the way, why do you think he's talking this way?
He's talking this way because this is the way he has always been known to talk. Senator Abaribe, who was my teacher in school, when he came to my school at Federal Government College to do youth service, he taught me, and I've known him since then. This is who he is. Senator Dixon, who is my personal friend, is also a man of courage. You see, there are people who just go to Abuja, to the National Assembly, but do not know why they came to Abuja. Because Nigeria runs a representative democracy, but some of these people think they came to Abuja to line their pockets. No, you are here in Abuja to represent yourself. Senator Dixon and Senator Abaribe are good examples of representatives of the people of Nigeria and their also constituencies.
Why are other senators
I
not
pray
reasoning that way?
more Nigerians.
Why are others not reasoning and taking action that way? They are also Nigerian.
Because our country is under state capture. If the sponsors of terrorism and the sponsors and the patrons of terrorism can intimidate the president, can intimidate the army, who already stationed people in the school in Kebi, for these sponsors to make phone call withdrawing, stationed army, stationed soldiers, stationed troops who are there to stop the kidnapping. If they could make phone call withdrawing those soldiers at that school, that tells you that our people, our problems are plenty. These sponsors and patrons of these terrorists are all over the place in government. And that's why you see some of their friends at National Assembly who don't want to speak like Senator Abaribe or Senator Dixon, so as not to offend their friends who are known to be patrons of these terrorists.
All right, Dr.
That's
Katch,
the reason why.
as I begin to coast home, let me ask you this question. The establishment of state policing, which is still a proposal and a legislative push as of now, people are saying that we would have futuristic problems in the sense that states do not have equal resources. So eventually, remuneration on the lines of state policing will become unequal. And people will begin to have issues around that. And talking about all other things like funding and all of these issues, their remuneration package, all of those will not be equal, will not be the same at the end of the day, and that they will have problems. What do you say to that?
That is not true. That is a complete fallacy.
Okay.
Governors currently pocket, most of them pocket security votes. That is what security vote is for. What do they do with the security votes? Nothing. So there is now a security issue you use that security vote for.
Remember that it's not all states that, even as of today, despite what they are taking home, are not paying, it's not all states who are paying the minimum wage. It's not all states who are releasing all of these things, even at the federal level.
That is why President Tinubu yesterday said, establish a law so that willing states can set up state police.
All right.
In life, the first thing you do is protection of your life and your property. And that's why it is also said that the first duty of state is...
Right, if we can, possibly... Actually, that's what it is, because these are issues of national importance, especially to everyone. We must sincerely thank Dr. Katch Onanuju for his take. And the president has laid out precept by precept. He addressed the grazing thing to say, let it stop. Open grazing is no more fashionable.
We've been dancing around it a long time.
And go and rank your cattle. Work on it. States that are willing to have state police, National Assembly, please expedite action on them. In addition to upgrading of training institutions. All right. The guys that have been instructed to be pulled off, the VIPs details should be given a crash course so that they will be, they will be empowered to face the reality, because some of them have been domiciled in people's gates and homes and cars. Come back.
And talking about schools too, establishing their boarding schools within the city and not on the outskirts.
One important point he made is religious centers, churches, mosques, Please seek police protection, especially in vulnerable
But
areas.
I ask that we need all the hands we can get in the police now. Who are those police? Even those that are attached to VIPs are being withdrawn. Who are those who will now go to school, be at the religious institutions guarding them? Who are those?
Well, maybe that's why the additional guards, because
are being done.
100,000, if actually it will go through, 100,000 police that are attached to VIPs are pulled back to the barracks.
Pending the crash program.
Right?
Crash training.
Of course, they will be pulled out, and the moment they report at the barracks, they'll be given the crash course. Crash course means it could be 3 days, it could be 3 weeks. Just be updated with the reality of what is happening at the front lines. Additional 20,000. So we're talking about 120,000 doing what they are supposed to do, not carrying bags and umbrellas and taking a guy someone to school and all of those things. So these are the issues. Maybe, but then one thing Nigerians will say is, for how long will these be? Is it 6 months period? Is it 3 months period?
And do not forget,
because
the
it's one thing to say things
as well.
Right. It's another thing for us to do it exactly the way he has said it. And you know, when you talk about open grazing in Nigeria, there are some that will tell you it's their birthright. That's what they have always been. We know people who echo that sentiment to say, you can't tell us anything. This is what our great-grandfathers did. This is what my grandfather did. This is what my father did. This is what it has been bequeathed to me. So government can talk. You don't expect that there will not be uproar to this. And of course, we get to talk about it.
Well, the commander-in-chief has spoken. It is left for us to, and the lawmakers to deem it fit.
And I like the way you have put it. The commander-in-chief has spoken. We hope there will be enforcement. That is it. Because he has told people with illegal weapons submit. People with illegal weapons will not ordinarily submit. They will not, because they are using it for nefarious activity. So there must be enforcement. It's like you are telling somebody, whatever you have stolen, come and bring it back. And he knows that if he didn't bring it back, nothing will happen. So there must be a nudge from somewhere. Let's hope this is just the first of the instances of the plans of Mr. President. We must go.
All right, dear viewer, you've heard today's talk. Let's all ponder on some of the statements, or on the statement and some of the key points, the highlights of the statement of the president. We hope that we'll begin to see reasonable actions, enforcements, you know, along these lines, and results. We're going home now, and it's the penultimate installment of this show, Morning Spring. Tomorrow we'll make a comeback for the last installment for the week, and then do not forget that, yes, we're coasting home today. We're also coasting into December, where it's the festivity and all of this. We hope that we have things better as the year runs out.
Yeah.
My name is Timitope Ajijolaluwala. Stay on the side of the
hustle and bustle, the rushings of the festivities and the Yuletide, and you get to see in many places now the Father Christmas has landed from Rome,
from the moon.
And from Rome,
with the moon.
All right, Femi Ojo is my name. We make a return tomorrow. I want to say a big shout out to the production team, and one of them is celebrating his birthday today. Mr. Rahman is his name. He knows there will be implication immediately. You know what they call implication? Not the two-faced implication, the real implication.
And let's say that he functions in different capacities. Cameraman, the sound man, the whatever man, whatever you need at the time, he just functions.
So happy birthday to him.
Life.
More twins to him and his wife, and more money in his pocket. We'll see you tomorrow for the TGIF edition, and everybody celebrating their birthday today, especially Rave 91.7 FM. I had its birthday yesterday.
A big shout out.
See you.
Bye-bye.